So, Vernie, we've decided to look at who's the best goalkeeper in the game at the moment. It probably feels like it's fairly easy one to some degree in the sense that Eoin Murphy has pulled off some of the greatest saves we've seen. The fact that he's a sweeper keeper. Is there anyone else that kind of even comes into the conversation? Because I think even Kilkenny people will come out with a fit of the vapour saying, well, it's obviously him.
Yeah, Kilkenny people definitely will, and probably rightfully so. Obviously, last year, Brian Hogan was the All-Star goalkeeper last year, and it's basically only at the very start of his Tipperary career. He's only really 2 years into his Tipperary career on the team, so he's open to any amount of improvement over the guts of the next decade. It has an unbelievable pedigree. Obviously, Anthony Nash is a two-time All-Star, was nominated for Hurler of the Year, has waited in the wings a long time in Cork as well, and is kind of flourishing at the moment, even though there's great competition behind him for his spot as well. They'd probably be the two that would stand out off the top of my head, but very hard go against Eoin Murphy. Just to me, he's the complete goalkeeper. He can do everything you want in a goalkeeper. So comfortable off his left, so comfortable off his right, unbelievably accurate, unbelievably fast and agile. He has all the qualities that you would want of an outfield player, and then you put him in goals, and he has that bravery, and his reflexes are just like nothing I've ever seen before. I actually only looked back recently from the 18 league final. Bubbles comes on, and he's racing through on goal and takes a shot, and it's actually wheeled away celebrating. Because he obviously, when you connect, you probably think it's absolutely on the money. He's wheeled away celebrating, and Eoin Murphy stops the ball miraculously somehow and clears the ball down the field. But and then you obviously have that Limerick game in 18, the quarter final. That's probably, I'd say it's probably the best goalkeeping display I've nearly ever seen, particularly in absolutely horrible conditions.
I would say you could nearly go back to the 2014 All Ireland and say that display in the drawing game could even be the greatest goalkeeping display I've ever seen. I think he won that. He was the different. I know that was a drawing game the first day, but I think he kept Kilkenny in it to such a degree that obviously they went on and won the replay. But without him the first day, that All Ireland wouldn't have been won. So he's up there among the most key components of that. Stephen O'Keefe was an All-Star for Watford in 2017, and of course they've had so many ups and downs. Sorry, they've pretty much had downs since then, and he even kind of briefly lost his place in Pádraig Fanning's final game against Cork in the 2019 championship. But he's definitely had some great days. He's like, I think he's one of the players who kind of almost pushed on the idea of being an outlet as a goalkeeper, that if I'm in the full back line, I can turn back and I can give it back to Stephen O'Keefe, because he'd be running out to the corner to collect it. He'd be switched over to the far side. He might even be sneaking up into space looking to see can he get the ball and play and take a shot from midfield. Remember, he's done that against Tipperary, of course, in Limerick in 2018. Did it in a challenge match for Ballygunner against our Coola team, possibly the same summer, maybe the summer 2019. Can't remember exactly off the top of my head. So he's another guy who offers some things that maybe, like Eoin Murphy, I'd imagine, could do those things, but maybe doesn't always get licensed to do those things.
Yeah, Mark Fanning is another one probably that slipped my mind as well. Like his iconic moment last year in the Leinster final. It just shows his ability as well. The fact that they trust him and trust his nerve, I suppose, and his technique to come up and hit basically the all-important penalty in that Leinster final. Another one of these keepers that is very comfortable on the ball, is always an outlet. Like, you wouldn't have, like 10 or 15 years ago, it never would have been seen that when a fullback would get the ball, that he'd turn around and give it to his goalkeeper. But that's just how comfortable those guys are on the ball. It's like giving it to a lad out in the middle of the field. They're that comfortable on the ball. They have time to look up and that. And guys like that have helped change what the role of the goalkeeper is, without a doubt. But I just think, even mentioning Fanning there, Eoin Murphy as well has that ability to put over those long range frees. There was a couple of years ago in the league, probably would have been 18, where he was one of their top scorers. Outside of TJ Reid, he was probably their second highest scorer, and he just has that ability as well. I just love how fleet-footed he is in goals. Never mind the saves or anything like that. He's just an absolute ball of energy. Of course, his athleticism as well. Like, how many keepers of the last 20 years would have been able to do what he did with Pádraig Mahony's long-range free in Thurles on that Saturday evening, like to be able to basically leap up, a couple of feet above the crossbar and take down the ball. It's been the difference maker. And it's funny, you mentioned there about the 14 performance in the All-Ireland final, and I mentioned, about the 18 quarter final. In hurling now, and with the quality and with the scoring being so high, it's very, very rare that the goalkeeper is the one you're left talking about, because you know a TJ Reid or whoever can put up these unbelievable tallies, but he's been that good that despite like you know games been 322 to 128 and this like this, he's invariably still been in the top 2 or 3 best players on the pitch, and that's a phenomenal feat.
Yeah, and actually, that Dublin Kilkenny game in 2018, I think, in the league in Parnell Park, sorry, in the Leinster round robin, so it felt like a league. He scored 4 frees from his own half in that game, and I think 2 were from his own 45. Actually, Alan Nolan was in goal for Dublin that day. And actually, then the following year against Galway, he scored from his own half. Now, he's probably in a battle with Sean Brennan to get the number 1 jersey there, so it might be tough to get into the conversation for top goalie at the moment. Nicky Quaid has to be mentioned. We all remember that unbelievable save he had against Cork in the 2018 semi-final, which probably was as crucial an intervention as you'll have all year from a Limerick man in terms of winning that All-Ireland. And what I really like about him is his execution of the puck-out plan. Because as much and all as you'll probably give John Kiley credit, you'll probably give Paul Kinnerk credit, the fact is this guy is able to find the pockets. I mean, so often they sort of, all 3 of them in the half-forward line come in together. The full forward line kind of more or less stands on the square, so you're leaving huge pockets of space. But that timing and that hit and grasp with the puck outs, or being able to float it so a lad is able to collect it on the move, I think Nicky Quaid is as good as anyone at doing that.
Yeah, see, like when you're talking about like doing this and doing that, and we need you to be able to do this and that, it's kind of grand talking about it, but to have someone like Nicky Quaid that's actually able to execute it is a different story altogether. Takes an unbelievable level of skill, and an unbelievable level of timing as well from both him and from the half forwards. He's able to time the puck out perfect, and they're able to be there when the ball lands. Like in 18, like nobody could really handle those puck outs. Even Galway in the final, who I thought would be able to handle them, they couldn't get a handle on them at all. Again, funny enough, he's another goalkeeper that plays outfield for his club. He plays centre back for Effin. And that's kind of a general theme of how goalkeeping has changed as well. It's not just, without being smart, it's not just the lad that's carrying a bit of weight in the goals that's able to give the ball a good slap 120 yards. I think that day is kind of gone. If you can't execute the sharp hookouts, if you can't be mobile and that as well, you're kind of going to get left behind now. But there, Nicky Quaid is just another example. I do think they're still all trailing in the wake of Eoin Murphy, who has not yet turned 30, and given his level of athleticism and his level of skill, could conceivably still be playing in goals for Kilkenny in 2026, 2027, realistically. I'd say he probably could be, if he can continue any sort of form like he's had over the last 5 to 6 years. To me, I think it's a fair chance he'll go down as one of the best goalkeepers of all time. And it was funny talking to David Herity. I did a piece on Eoin Murphy last year for the Independent, a profile piece, and he said to Brian Cody asked Herity one day, how was Eoin Murphy going? And he said, it's only a matter of time before he gets in, and or it's only a matter of time before he kind of takes that spot and pushes on or whatever. Whenever he gets in, he'll be very hard to dislodge. Little did Herity know that in about 2 months' time, Murphy was going to be put in, and he probably shouldn't have been as complimentary as he was to him. But that'll just show you. And Herity was saying as well, just about, he's never met as quick of a learner as him. He's obviously had played a bit in goals for the minors and that, but he said when he was doing drills and stuff with him, he was just an unbelievably quick learner, and he was able to take things to another level. And it's kind of one of those kind of things where he was kind of teaching the protege, and then quickly realised that the protege was going to fairly run past him fairly quickly after.
Another guy to mention, of course, is your own club man, Owen Cahill, who plays outfield now for Offaly, scoring points galore. So another guy who, I mean, maybe it adds to the fact that he's such a good goalie that he's capable of playing outfield. Another guy, Conor Dooley, remember he kind of jumped between being in goals and being outfield for both Ballyboden and Dublin. So he was in the team in and out of the team under Ger Cunningham for a couple of years. But he actually came on full forward one day against Galway. And in club, we've played him a few times, and he's played in the forwards because Gary Maguire, who took back the Dublin number 1 jersey in a couple of seasons ago, he was in goals for the club. So it's a funny situation actually with Ballyboden. They've had so many kind of inter-county goalies between minor, under 21, like Finn McGarry. I think Conor McCormick played in goals for the Dublin minors. There's possibly even someone else that I'm missing. Maybe Simon Lambert, when he was very young, was a Dublin minor goalkeeping sub or something like that. He might even let me know if he watches this video. And Enda Rowland is someone we haven't mentioned, because he's another goalkeeper who we've seen videos online of scoring from play, All-Star nomination. So he's up in the conversation. Is there anyone else we're missing, or do you want to comment on those?
It's funny you mentioned Owen Cattle. Owen Cattle's obviously a brilliant goalie. He'll never hopefully hurling goals for his club. I'm hoping anyway. And to me, as good as Owen is in goals, the best goalkeeper I've ever seen or shared a pitch with is Brian Mullins from my own club in Burr. He's been in goals for Burr since 1998. Reflexes like an absolute cat. And it's one of these lads who has adapted his game to the modern game as well. Can do all the sharp hook outs. He's unbelievably mobile as well. Funny story about him actually. He's a bit of a character. He's mellow. He's probably mellowed a good bit over the years, but he would have been. He'd probably admit himself probably been a bit wild in his younger days. But they were playing Tipperary in a practice match, awfully were years ago. And Breeder, as he's called, had the phone in the pocket because he always wears tracksuit bottoms. And he had the phone in the pocket and this was during a challenge game, and he was texting during the match when the ball was at the other end of the field. This is during a challenge game, and I remember Joe Brady from Coolary saying to me, and he said I was looking back like he was playing full back, and this lad was texting in the goals, and then the ball had come down, and he just like saved like rockets. He just said he couldn't believe it, like he was lying against the post, kind of sending a message with the phone in his kind of pocket, and then the ball had come down, and he'd be all business, and he'd be unbelievably professional. But yeah, he's for longevity at club level in Offaly, and just in general, if I was picking a best 15. He'd be on it in goals every day of the week. And Enda Rowland, yeah, unbelievable slap of the ball. I suppose he's only getting the credit now that maybe he should have got a couple of years ago. But yeah, he's taken goalkeeping to a different level too, in fairness. Unbelievably accurate. I've watched him a good bit with IT Carlo and the Fitzgibbon. And at that level, he can dominate a game at that level, just with his ability to pick out a pass. What I love about those kind of modern goalies as well, and Eoin Murphy and Enda Rowland are the same, they actually can take a puck out on the run now. It's not standing. So you don't know whether it's going to go short, or you don't know whether it's going to go long, or even what direction it's going to go. And it just kind of shows you as well how kind of goalkeeping has changed.
So I think we're probably agreed then that Eoin Murphy gets the nod for now. Is there anyone that kind of in a couple of years could take over? I mean, you've got Patrick Collins with Cork, who looks like he could be a good goalkeeper. I'm sure he'll have a battle with Anthony Nash to dislodge him. And then his other brother, is it Ger, is his brother as well, who's also on that Cork panel. So you've got, it'd be tasty enough to drive to and from training with those young boys. But is there anyone else who's set to take over? I think Brian Hogan looks like a very good goalkeeper, potentially, if he can get the consistency up. He probably let in a couple of goals that he'd rather not have during the league this year. But some of his displays last year for Tipperary were very, very good. And if he can, like I know Jake Malone, who had heard at club level, plays with Dublin, he was going on about from playing with UCD, that Brian Hogan can kind of put the ball in your mouth in terms of short pockets and that, which, you know, for a Tipperary person is very encouraging to hear because he's got the variety that you need. But is there anyone else that's kind of that you think could take over in the next couple of years? Anyone else, even from a Galway point of view, who could measure up to Colm Callan?
Yeah, no, I've chatted to Cyril Farrell a good bit, and he's been very impressed with Eoin Murphy, who's played throughout the league. He's obviously Tommy Larkin's clubman as well, the same as himself. Said he's been very impressed with him. Says he kind of has the full array of tricks in his arsenal as well, like any modern day goalie. Has gotten a good few chances under Shane O'Neill, so it's kind of been. Colm Callan was kind of injured for the last couple of years, and then obviously retired. James Skell has been kind of on and off for a while, so there is probably an opening there for someone to kind of go through the gap. And what I've seen of him, I saw him in the league game against Limerick. There were one or two small little maybe issues, but definitely an awful lot to work with.